Well, hello, friends. Welcome to Lead to Gold, the podcast devoted to discussing all things growth and wellness. And today's topic is getting really deep into wellness as it stands, as we are entering a new season. Wherever you are in the world, we're transitioning into a new season, but I'm in the Northern Hemisphere, so we are approaching winter. For some of us, it feels like it's been here for quite a while, and I'm really just jumping right in today. But before I get way too ahead of myself, I do have a really exciting announcement, and I briefly mentioned this on the last episode, episode 25, the Friendsgiving special, but I wanted to bring it up again here because it's exciting, it's new, it's fun, and I'm really stoked to be able to bring this to you. So, yay! Lead to Gold finally has merch. I am selling a couple designs at TeePublic, taking a little homage from Maintenance Phase. Thanks, guys. But in any case, yes, if you are interested, if you would like to support the show, that is a great way to do it. I have a couple shirts, I have mugs, I have stickers, phone cases, children's t-shirts, hoodies. There's all kinds of stuff over at the site. So definitely go check that out if you have been a fan of the show for a little while, or if you just want to support the show. Other ways to support the show would be to rate, subscribe on whatever platform you are using, and definitely feel free to share with a friend, especially this one. If you have any people in your life who are chronic winter haters, we're trying to change that today. So let's get into it. I feel like a lot of the episodes that I have been putting out recently, honestly, even since the summer, a lot of them have been very ranty. A lot of them have come from a place of confusion or anger or just needing to get out some amount of frustration, right? And looking back at all of my old episodes, these past couple, there was the hot take about you might need to lower your expectations, or gratitude and guilt, which is a very, very heavy episode, talking about adult friendships, where I delved into all of these kind of recent revelations in my social life and just like crying about it to all of these people. Continuing the conversation on boundaries and the patriarchy and doom scrolling. It's like all of this stuff I feel like that I've been talking about for a while now have been quite heavy. And although I do really find value in those conversations, and I do genuinely love bringing them, I feel like there is a good time and place for them. They were relevant. They still are relevant, so if you feel like ranting with somebody, go check those out. But I don't want to lose sight of the ultimate mood of this podcast and what I'm really here to do, which is to bring light out of darkness, or in other words, less esoteric terms, taking situations that may be somewhat shitty and finding the good in them, or at least learning a lesson from them. So that's why I'm really excited to talk about this today, because I feel like this is such a perfect opportunity to like really practically bring that into our lives. Winter is the time of darkness, quite literally. So how do we find the good in it? It's a hard time for a lot of people. How do we lighten the load? How do we make it less hard? That's what I'm here to discuss today. So ultimately, I'm just trying to bring some practical advice, like I said, from somebody who used to be a chronic winter hater, and I don't think I am anymore. I still have my preferences, of course, but I don't hate winter anymore. And I'm really happy about that, because I've been able to unlearn a lot of the really negative stereotypes and the negative expectations that I've always held around this season. And something that I will probably get into later in this episode is just the realization that I've had that winter is a quarter of our lives. You know, maybe it's not as noticeable where you live. If you're in like the southern US or you're closer to the equator, you probably don't have as extreme temperature differences, light differences for sure. But nonetheless, winter tends to be a time of slowness and a time of quieting down. There's not as much going on. And it's a lot easier to kind of get down in the dumps around this time of year, which we will absolutely be getting into today. But my point there is we spend a quarter of our lives effectively in this season. So why would I want to dread a quarter of my life? It doesn't make any sense, you know? And I know it's not as easy as just saying, oh, I don't want to dread this time anymore. There are actual diagnoses that people become affected by at this time of year, which we will also get into. But I hope I'm making my point clear. It's a long, long time to just kind of dread its coming and also sit in suffering when it does finally come every year. So anyway, let's talk about how to make this a little bit brighter of a season. Right now, as I'm entering the winter season where I live, it's not quite there technically on the calendar yet, but we're approaching. It's definitely getting a lot colder. I brought out my big, heavy flannel-lined jacket this week. I'm currently wearing big, fuzzy socks, and I have been all week at home. The modes that I'm finding myself getting in now are very similar to hibernation. I had to put my garden beds to bed over the past couple of weekends, and just generally doing some like house cleanup, doing some inner cleanup for sure. I'm feeling the need to just do a lot of resting, reflecting, and also preparing for what's to come. So very similar to hibernation. It's like I feel like I'm gathering all of these things up now to get cozy, to settle in, and just kind of make the most of it until springtime comes again and things get a little bit busier, right? So it's not to say that I'm already planning out the springtime. That would kind of be insane for me. I cannot think that far ahead. But more so just starting to think about what I'm envisioning for the next couple of months, the next year, 2024. And even beyond that, I am approaching, I'm not quite there yet, but I'm approaching my Saturn return, which feels daunting and it feels a little heavy and a little scary. But right now, in the midst of winter, feels like a pretty opportune time to start actually like thinking about what I've learned in my life thus far, like all of my life. Who am I right now and who am I becoming? How am I going to step into that sort of Saturn return portal as a new person? Or maybe in a different light, the person that I've always been, just elevated. So let me back up for a second. If you're not familiar with the Saturn return, it is when Saturn re-enters the sign it was in when you were born. So this always happens right around your 30th birthday. It varies by a couple of years for some people. But my Saturn is in Aries, and the last time Saturn was in Aries was like a super, super quick little retrograde in 1999, if I remember correctly. So I was born in 1997. It's been that long. We're about to come back into Saturn in Aries in mid 2025. So we're not quite there yet. Still got a little ways to go, but I do feel like that almost pressure is starting to come up for that time in my life. So I'm anxiously awaiting that. I'm starting to prepare for that. And on a smaller scale, I'm thinking about just how my life has changed over the past few years, how I am genuinely, I think, the happiest I've ever been and the most settled and stable I've ever been. I'm just really trying to take that in and appreciate it, be present with it. And now, also kind of a Saturn return theme, moving into a time in my life where I get to use that for good. I get to use the fact that I am stable and doing very, very well for myself to give back and to take a lot more self-responsibility, because I do have a lot of power and I do have a lot of potential. I'm talking a lot about myself. I'm realizing that. But my point in saying all of this is winter feels like a really opportune time to sit with where we're at and where we want to go from here. So the last thing I'll say on that note is this is also coming up as a time for me to kind of reflect on Led to Gold as a brand. I feel like it's really come into its own in this past year in 2023. The podcast itself started January 1st, 2023. So it's almost a year old. And yeah, just really excited about where things are headed, the trajectory. We're slowly but surely getting a little bit more of an audience, and I'm really excited about that. So how do I continue on that spectrum? How do I continue that upward trajectory? So just getting like really jazzed about that and starting to plan out some next steps. Anyway, reflection is very apparent right now. I feel like human hibernation, as I'm calling it, calls for that, right? Because it's not like we're going to just sit in our houses and sleep for 3 months, 4 months, whatever. We are doing less externally. So it makes sense to me to kind of use this time to get closer to the self and determine where to go and what to do and how we're doing, right? What things need to be changed or cleaned up. That also comes along with the whole like preparation and also like settling in, all of these things. It's like, I don't know, I'm genuinely thinking of little woodland creatures like making their nests and gathering food and all that stuff. It's like feels very parallel to me. So I like that feeling. It's very homey, it's very cozy. But I definitely did not always feel that way about this season, and I know a lot of people don't. It doesn't feel exciting to step into winter when we first think about it, right? Because we have that sort of inner knowing that, okay, things are quieting down. There's not as much going on. I live next to a cute little downtown. They don't do as many events in the winter because it's cold and people don't want to go out. And depending on where you live, that's probably a big theme. It's just a little bit dreary. And on a much more literal level, we have a lot less light. So why would I want to do anything once the sun sets? My colleagues and I, my fellow teachers and I, we always talk about how kind of shitty it is because we wake up, the sun is just kind of barely rising when we wake up, and we start school pretty late where I work. By the end of the day, when the kids are leaving, the sun is setting. So by the time I get home nowadays, it's dark, fully dark. And it kind of sucks because it's like, I don't want to do anything once I get home, which actually brings me to my first tip. And I'm going to be echoing some people and some inspirations that I've seen. So this kind of comes from You're From Here on Instagram. His tag I'll post in the show notes for you because it's spelled a little bit odd, but I absolutely loved this, and I kind of wanted to take it and explain it in a way that makes sense to me. So the way that I will say this, first off, is tip number 1, get the fuck out of bed. And in a much nicer way, what I really mean by that is get out of bed in the morning. It's not as beneficial for us to sleep in like we might normally sleep in the summertime. it's not going to be as beneficial in the wintertime because we are quite literally wasting daylight. And part of what makes seasonal affective disorder so prominent for a lot of people is literally that vitamin D deficiency and genuinely like the dreariness that comes with not getting enough sunlight and not seeing the sun. If you're somebody like me or somebody like my partner who works literally from sun up to sundown, you don't really get to go outside during that time. You don't get to get the sun on your face. Some people may not even literally see the sun all day long. And that's depressing. It just is. So when you're able to maximize the amount of daylight in your day, and the absolute easiest way to do that, the most logical way to do that, is potentially by waking up a little bit earlier, if you're not already. If you are able to get a workout in during that time, like right when you first wake up, prioritize moving some of your activities to the morning so that you can make the most of the daylight that is available to you. So again, like doing a workout in the morning, going for a walk, even just making your coffee and sitting by the window can make a huge difference in your mood throughout the day. Because even if you get, 10 minutes of sun on your face, sun nearby, natural light, that can make a huge difference in sort of chasing away the winter blues, if you will. So speaking of the winter blues, let's talk about seasonal affective disorder, which is not just as simple as the winter blues, but it's something that we do kind of think about and has thankfully become a lot more common and a lot more understood in recent years. So maybe you've heard of it before, maybe you haven't, but I will give you a quick overview. Seasonal affective disorder is a type of depression that is related to the changes in the seasons. So it begins and ends right around the same time as winter begins and ends. And symptoms tend to start naturally with like the dimming of the light, seeing less light throughout the day, and it kind of just like sucks all your energy out of you, makes you feel really moody, which is normal. I mean, I think to a degree, this is maybe not universal, but it is normal. It's very normal. I can tell you right now, I've been talking to my friends about this. It's such an unexplainable moodiness that comes when fall starts to set in. And I'm not talking about like the pretty aesthetic, moody, witchy fall. I'm talking like I'm listening to Adrian Lenker all day long and feeling like I just need to go drive off into the sunset and go sit in a forest by myself and cry the whole time. Like it's that kind of moody. So I'm not trying to make light of it, but it's different. It's a much more dense, heavy feeling. And it's almost like my friends and I talk about, it feels like you can't possibly get enough moodiness. It's like you have to bring out the sad songs. You have to bring out the candles and feel a little bit sorry for yourself and stare out the window longingly. It's like that's the vibe. But anyway, the symptoms of seasonal affective disorder typically tend to go away during the spring and summer months. And some of its symptoms beyond the just like general moodiness, the lack of energy, would be feeling restless, feeling just bummed and sad most of the day, nearly every day, losing interest in activities. So it's not just a matter of there's not as much going on. Oh, bummer. It's like, even if there were things going on, like say your friends are having a get together, you don't want to go because it just feels too hard. Maybe sleeping too much. I think that's a pretty common one. Experiencing changes in your eating habits, maybe overeating tends to happen a little bit more often, having difficulty concentrating, feeling hopeless. Those are some of the more extremes, but it is depression at the end of the day. So it's very similar types of symptoms rather. And here's the thing. This is me personally. So I am in no way trying to say that seasonal affective disorder is not a thing. It absolutely is. It is diagnosable. It gets diagnosed every single year. There are articles all over the place about it. People take medication for it. So I know that it exists. However, in my case, I learned about seasonal affective disorder when I was probably in 8th grade. So I was around 14. And I was feeling down. I was feeling a little bit sluggish and sad and overly tired and absolutely losing interest in things that I used to find interest in. But I think the difference for me was that through that time, I kind of really latched on to the idea of seasonal affective disorder. And I heard about it. I'm like, okay, these things check off. I must have seasonal affective disorder. When in reality, as a teenager, it's natural to go through periods of feeling less excited about things. It's completely normal and natural to be more tired and be more sluggish because suddenly when you're entering high school, when you're becoming more responsible for yourself, the workload gets harder. You have to start thinking about things you haven't thought about before and taking care of things you haven't had to take care of before. The schedule, right? There were so many reasons for me feeling this way. It wasn't, in my case, seasonal affective disorder. It was just simply becoming a teenager. And again, I know that this is not how it works for everybody, but in my case, I think I just tended to put myself in that position even more than I would have been because I was like, oh, winter is causing this. Winter sucks. Winter is bad. So for years after that, every time winter came around, I felt that I was going to feel that way again. And I'm associating it automatically with the fact that I'm getting less light, whatever. Unless there was snow on the ground, I hated winter. I've always loved snow. I love skiing. I love spending time out in the snow. It's pretty. It's nice. Otherwise, I don't fucking want it. I don't fucking want it. As soon as the new year was over, as far as I was concerned, I was like, all right, cool. We can go back to spring now. But then I would just have to spend all of January, all of February, most of March miserable because I'm like, ugh, the weather sucks. I'm sad. And again, I felt like I was kind of, there's a word for this that's not coming to me right now. Oh, self-fulfilling prophecy. It was a self-fulfilling prophecy. I really do believe that. I assumed that I had a disorder that I very likely didn't. And then kind of used that as an excuse to just like hate this time of the year for many, many years. And it took a lot for me to get out of that until I had that sort of moment, that coming to that I mentioned a couple minutes ago, which was, wait, do I really want to feel this way? There are nice things about this season. There's the community. There's the coziness. There's so many things that we can do. Obviously, this may not apply to absolutely everyone, but there are many things that I was able to do to kind of turn around my mood on the season and make it a little bit better. So waking up earlier is not the easiest thing in the world for a lot of people. Maybe this doesn't even apply to your situation. Maybe you're already waking up before the sunrise and you have to get to work. I know that that's a reality for a lot of people, especially the further north you live. You may not really be able to avoid working during all of the daylight hours. I would like to challenge you nonetheless to see if there are any ways that you can get a little bit of sunlight in during your day, during a lunch break. Definitely on the weekends. Make some time to enjoy the daylight that you do have. The very first form of therapy that I think of when I think of seasonal affective disorder is light therapy, which uses artificial light, really bright artificial light, to sort of mimic the sun, right? It exposes people with season affective disorder to like kind of make up for that diminished natural sunlight. And this is something that you may need to do also. You know, maybe you already have sort of that sun lamp in your house. Absolutely use it. But it doesn't replace natural sunlight. Natural sunlight is like without a doubt the best option. So if you can get it, try to get a little bit of it in your day, every day, as much as you can. The last little piece that I'll add in about this first tip, which is to ultimately prioritize your mornings and prioritize getting your activities done in the morning as best as you can. Make use of that light. The nice thing about that is that by the end of the day, there's not as much to do, right? So you get to naturally ease into that darkness that we eventually settle into. And to top it all off, I can go home, and as I'm coming home, the sun is setting. I get home, it's dark, and I can put on my cozies and essentially do nothing because I have nowhere to go now. I already did the thing. So now I get to relax and be indoors when the sun has set. Lots of ways to potentially make that happen. If you are somebody that struggles with sleeping in, you are not alone. I also am. And I know that I will not be perfect in practicing this, but I'm definitely going to try because I know first thing in the morning, having natural daylight in my eyeballs is a huge help. Some other things. This is another tip from my list and probably my favorite because I am a slut for coziness. I'm being a little bit silly in this episode, but it's true. I am a cozy slut. I love everything cozy. I love it. I love it. I love it. If I could just live in a little cottagecore looking den and just have blankets on blankets. Actually, no, scratch that. Like cottagecore den, but think like a Hobbit house. Like I would absolutely live my best life in Hobbiton, where I can just like walk over to the Green Dragon and it's super cozy and there's a fireplace going and there's nice shag rugs all over the place and my home is filled with blankets and candles and tea selections and things like that. You get the idea. Prioritize that. Prioritize whatever coziness is for you, because I'm sure we do not have identical definitions, but whatever makes you feel cozy, embrace it, enjoy it, and be present with it. When you intentionally make a cozy space, I can't imagine how that would not feel good, like super good, unless you were just mindlessly doing it. So make time on a weekend or at night or whatever, make some time to intentionally set up a cozy space. I don't know, wherever your TV is, or after dinner, if you and your partner want to catch up on a show or watch some YouTube or whatever, I don't know, like embrace that. Make it an event. Make it something that is extra special just because you took an extra few minutes to make you guys some tea and lit a few candles and got all your best blankets out and then sprawled them on the couch all nice and cute. Be intentional and enjoy it. Enjoy every moment of it. Make a super, super delectable, delicious, cozy meal and then bring that to your cozy space and watch your cozy stuff. It's the best. It's just the best way to spend a super frightful winter evening. And yeah, just another quick little note on coziness in general. I brought up food right there at the end, but I'm talking about all things cozy. Your home, making your home intentionally cozy. If you have a super like cold, crappy weather day coming up, plan to make a stew or a soup or, you know what? Fuck it. Order Indian food. I don't know. That's like my favorite thing when it's cold, crappy weather and I definitely couldn't be bothered to cook. I get Indian food because that just instantly makes me feel cozier. What else? Clothing. Put on your favorite fuzzy socks. Get out your special robe. Winter PJs. Whatever you got to do. Bring those things out. Make them intentional. Enjoy every moment. And that can just be sort of like a special winter occasion on its own. We love that. Tip number 3 from me is to bring your inner child out into some of these activities. Reconnect with your inner child and what they did in the winter. This is also kind of, I'm thinking in tandem here because I don't have any children of my own yet, but I want to also say, if you do already have children, get them excited for the season if they're not already. I feel like maybe this is me speaking without experience, but I feel like it's kind of a given that little kids are just really, really excited about the winter season because Christmas and holidays and seeing family and snow days. Are you kidding me? If you have snow where you live, it's just like the best thing ever. And like I said earlier, for me, snow was the only thing that made winter worthwhile. If we got snow days, awesome. I was definitely out playing in it. But if we didn't have any snow, I was like, this is boring. This is stupid. There's no point. This sucks. So back to my point, I feel like there is some sort of natural, inherent, childlike wonder in the winter season. So whether you have kids or not, rediscover what it was that made you so excited about the winter season, if anything. And if not, maybe this rule or this tip just doesn't apply to you. But regardless, I know, like I just said, snow would get me super jazzed. I would always write letters to Santa, and my brother and I, up until high school, well into high school, would track Santa on the NORAD website. And I still do this. I love it. It just brings back so much nostalgia for me, and I just love it. And a lot of these things, a lot of the examples that I'm going to bring up may not apply to everybody, but that could be one quick thing. If you used to track Santa. If you used to make snowmen, if you get snow where you are, go make a snowman again for the heck of it. Why not? It's just really fun, I think, to be able to go back to the people that we were when we were little people, when we were younger. What brought us joy? What about the holiday season, or just in general the winter season, brought us joy? I'm thinking of very stereotypical things, but a few other little mentions. When my mom would make chili and it would last us like 2 weeks, I wasn't even mad about it. I would always get mad at my mom for like making, or I felt like she would make the same things over and over. Chili was the one thing that I was like, I will eat this every night and never complain, because it was just good and it was comforting, and it got us through a pretty substantial portion of the winter season. And it just feels good for the soul. So remake some of your favorite meals. Make some hot chocolate, if that was your thing back then. Think about it. Think about what little you enjoyed about the season. Maybe it wasn't much to do with the actual winter season itself, but maybe you found yourself playing more video games because you had a little bit more indoor time. Find those video games again, or carve out some space to allow yourself to do that now. Any and all of these things can kind of help you to find the joy again. But the important piece of this tip is to bring your inner child into it. So it's not just a matter of sitting and playing video games because you feel like it, but doing it for younger you. Saying, hey, buddy, this is for you, because why not? Let's do something you like. On a similar note, I recognize that holidays are hard for a lot of people. Not everybody grew up in a family that celebrated. Not everybody grew up in a family that celebrated and it was actually fun or enjoyable. Sometimes this time of year can make us more sad because we know that these are things that we are either missing out on or not looking forward to because of our family dynamics. There are an endless number of ways that negative or harmful family stuff can show up in the wintertime for us. It's just that natural time. So another thing that I would ask of you to try is that if your inner child was wounded by things that your family did during this time of year, or just did not grow up with great experiences around this time of year. Another way to involve your inner child in this process is to give them the winter season that they would have wanted. Give them the community that they would have wanted, or the company that they would have wanted, the enjoyment, the comfort, the fun that they would have wanted. Spend a little time reflecting and getting in touch and practice asking them, what would you have wanted? And how can you now provide that for yourself? Tip number 4, and I'm combining this one with one from You're From Here. So I wrote down seek community and do things together. Absolutely do things with community if you have the means. This is a markedly lonely time. That's something that a lot of people note about the winter, is that it is lonely naturally, right? Because as I said earlier, there aren't as many events going on. There isn't a lot to do, not a lot of opportunities to go out, or maybe you just don't feel like going out. So something that I feel like I'm very, very fortunate to be able to do is get together with friends who live close. And again, like I'm saying with every tip that I could provide for this episode, intentionally getting together and doing something nice, doing something cozy. One of my favorite memories from last winter, and it was honestly kind of started off as just another night, but I still think about it because it just made me really happy, was a paint night where I got my close group of friends together. A couple of people came out from the city, just literally sat around the dinner table, drank red wine, and painted. And it was wonderful. It was really cozy and sweet and wonderful. So definitely try to do something that is indoorsy, doesn't require anybody to have to go too far. Maybe you can cook a meal together. Maybe you can enjoy a meal together. Another thing my friends and I have done that I've already mentioned, but with or without friends, order Indian food. I'm going to keep bringing up Indian food in this episode because it is just so freaking good. So cozy. So cozy. I haven't mentioned my order, but it is paneer makhani every single time. It's just so cozy. Can't help it. So whatever that may mean for you, find some community, do some things together. And You're From Here does lend a good, interesting tip on the idea of socializing in general. So I'm saying seek community where you can and when you can, but I also recognize it might be a little bit tough this time of year. So You're From Here says, shift the ways that you socialize. Instead of focusing on socializing being something like parties or drinking, find more pleasure in having meals or walks or opportunities to do some sort of outdoor activity together as any means of socializing so that you can continue to maintain an early start. So he actually connects both of those ideas together. And I will, like I said, come back to some of those tips after my list. But tip number 5 from me, indoor hobbies. I kind of just mentioned a few. Paint nights. This is a great time. I'm bad at this. I would like to get better, but I think winter is a wonderful opportunity to, yet again, cozy up with a good book. Like I said, I am not the best at this. I wish that I was better, but I do tend to fall asleep every time I get cozied up with a good book. I'm more of a lay in the sunshine over the summer and read my book type of girl, but we're working on it. Anything that you can do indoors that brings you joy, get it out, do it. And the last tip from me. This is going to really bring us home to the ideas that I was sharing earlier, kind of the stages that I'm really feeling in my own wintering process right now, but use this time to restore your energy. Use this time to gear up for what's to come, even if you're not thinking about it yet. And like I said, I'm really not thinking about it in detail yet. I'm not seeking and searching for the springtime. I'm not looking forward to it already. I'm trying to keep my mindset in the here and now as much as I can. But you can still intentionally save energy for the coming events. Anything big that you know is coming in the next year for you, any plans, even just goals, things that you want to achieve in the coming year, save up your energy. And I want to combine that with this idea of, I don't know, it's almost like there's an expectation that winter is going to drain you. Winter is going to suck the life out of you just because that's what happens. Like, it's a depressing season. But I've made this mistake a lot before where I hear that. It's kind of like what I was saying earlier. I hear that and I think that resting too much is bad. Or I'm being so lazy. It's like as soon as I get home, I just want to sleep and do nothing. Well, no wonder, because when I get home, it's dark. That's a natural human instinct to shut off, get ready for bed, and do nothing when it's dark out. So don't beat yourself up for needing extra rest during this time of year. That is literally the most normal thing ever. Don't beat yourself up. If you need rest, get rest. If you want to sit in bed and just have a night where you're chilling, cozy, watching Netflix, allow yourself to do that. Maybe not every night. Maybe you've got stuff to do. I know we've all got stuff to do, but allow that. Allow yourself to rest and know that it's good, because you need that. You need to be able to rest for whatever is to come. And with that, I'm going to quickly just shuffle through over to the other tidbits that came from this post. Like I said, I will post the user You're From Here in my show notes for this. So definitely go check him out. I love this man's content. He's so awesome. But here's what he says. Okay, so this first one is one that I mentioned. Prioritize doing stuff in the morning. Find ways to do more so nothing in the evening. He says, shifting my sleep pattern to bed at 9 p.m. and waking up at 5 a.m. and being up before the sunrise makes the day feel way longer. I know this isn't realistic for everyone. I am not going to attempt to wake up at 5 a.m., but do what works for you and recognize there is a benefit to this, right? The earlier you can wake up and the more you can spend time in the daylight, the more beneficial for your overall well-being during this season. It's hard for those of us who like to sleep in, but don't wake up and regret it, feeling like you've wasted your whole day. Try to get as much light as you can. All right, other ones. Spend my resources on embracing the winter rather than distracting from or escaping winter. Before, I'd spend more resources filling up the escaping or distraction cup rather than the embracing cup. And by that, I mean I would drink a bunch of pints each week, fantasize about going abroad and looking for work that would take me out of the country, spending lots of time consuming entertainment. And this is going to sound weird, but I'd eat a lot of food that reminded me of hot countries or of the summer to try and pretend I wasn't here. Now, I spend more resources on things like nice logs for fire, clearing space in my house to be able to move and play indoors, eat grounding seasonal food that pulls me more into winter rather than takes me out of it, and seek out social/community things rather than just online digital entertainment. That's a long one, but I love that one. So really comes back to the whole idea of just purely embracing winter instead of fighting it. There's last two ones. Low amber lighting. He says, if you have access to fire, that's great. But if not, then lighting candles or having low, warm light will help your body wind down in the evening so you sleep much better. I definitely don't have a fireplace in my sweet little townhome, but I love this idea also. I mentioned candles. I have a weird fixation on like old ass lamps. So I've never been a big fan of like overhead lighting. Even in my classroom, I don't use overhead lighting. I use little like fairy lights and I have lamps in there. But in my home, I have these super, super faded, super old, like vintage lamps. And I love them. Most of them I've had, or they have been in my family for probably upwards of 30 to 40 years at this point. But I love them because they're faded, and the little lampshades were probably once white and now they're this like faded yellow, and I just love them. So same idea. They make the place cozy. It's warm light. It's lovely. It's cozy. Okay, his last one. He says, this is a big one for me. Go and shake hands with whatever the weather is saying that day. Even if it's for 10 minutes, go and run around in a pair of shorts in the rain, barefoot or something. That's been the biggest thing in not fearing the winter, choosing to make friends with it. I love this one. I absolutely love this one because, again, I'm pretty bad with this. When it is cold and windy, I don't want anything to do with the outdoors. But you all might remember, if you've been listening to the show for a while, I put out an episode at the beginning of this year. So it was probably in January or something. And I was doing a 75 soft. If you're unfamiliar, I would go check out that episode or check the link in the show notes. I believe it's episode 2. But just for a short term, it's a list of goals that I set out to do every day for 75 days. And one of them was to get outside every day. But let me tell you, as much as I preach going outside, and I love going outside, love Mama Earth, love spending time with her, all things, it's really hard for me to do that in the winter. So I love this idea of just really genuinely raw embracing the elements, no matter what they are. Even if it's freezing, even if it's gross, just 10 minutes. Get in your yard, touch the ground, go find a frozen little puddle, something. Something is better than nothing. All of that to say, embracing winter is not necessarily an easy journey, but I do think it is a worthwhile one, especially if we are in the business of trying to feel better, right? Because again, like I said at the beginning, why waste a quarter of essentially your life dreading something, dreading just like the day to day because of what the weather is like? What's the point in that? Why do we really rationally want to dread 25% of our lives? I feel like it's a little silly. And again, I'm not insinuating that this is an easy switch, but with a little bit of reframing, with a little bit of intention, I think we can take some steps to make it a little bit less dreadful and make it actually potentially quite nice. So that's on embracing winter. That's on human hibernation. Let it happen. It's normal. It is normal. You have worked hard all year long. You have been a cog in this capitalistic machine. Allow yourself a small act of rebellion and let yourself enjoy the winter season. Let yourself rest and let that be completely okay. Because it is. And now I will get off my soapbox about winter. And I will pull us a card, as I do at the end of every episode of Led to Gold, from the We're Not Really Strangers healing pack. And with this, if you're new here, I love to discuss this question, whatever question it may be, at the end of every episode. And if you feel so inclined to journal about it or, take some notes, whatever works for you, grab a journal, grab a pen, and let's talk about it. Yeah, that's the other thing. DM me if you want to follow up on any themes from today's episode, including this. Here we go. Here is the question for the day. What small step can you take toward your healing today? Can you hear my cat meowing? Let's see if I can get her on the mic. Okay, she's being shy, but that's all right. What small step can you take toward your healing today? Well, I think I could definitely use a little bit of practicing what I preach and letting myself get cozy and comfy for the rest of this evening. But I also want to acknowledge my growth within myself. And I think it's something that just kind of, again, comes naturally at the end of a year where you kind of look back and you're like, all right, well, where was I at the start of this year? How far have I come? What has changed? And a lot has changed, but very subtly. And I feel like it would be a really nice thing to be able to actually like sit with that for a moment and recognize what that means. Sometimes I get down on myself because I actually literally just did this yesterday. I was looking at old pictures of myself from like 2019, maybe early 2020. And again, like this happens a lot. I'll look at these pictures and be like, oh, I looked so good back then. And just, maybe a little bit of TMI, but whatever. I was, I'm like taking these sexy pictures and I felt like, oh, I looked so good. I was so confident. Why am I not like that anymore? And then I have to kind of stop and be like, whoa, slow down. Because 2019 was, no shade to how old was I then? No shade to 22-year-old me. She was hot. She was doing her thing. She was doing her best. But 22-year-old me was in the trenches mentally and still had a lot to work through in terms of just how to cope with really tough emotions. I was not yet really on my spiritual journey yet, which is, again, no shade, but there is so much valuable information that I have learned on that journey that I was not even aware of yet. So that's just one small thing in my own personal life that I'm like, I look at that girl from 2019 and I'm like, wow, like you are about to take the most magnificent journey. And she would not believe the amount of just genuine, solid contentment that I feel now on a day-to-day basis, because back then I dreamed that I would one day feel this way and I was afraid that I never would. But that's the small step, which actually sounds way bigger, but just being able to kind of acknowledge, like reconnect with that version of me and say, hey girl, like we made it out. We're doing amazing, genuinely better than ever. And I'm proud of you for sticking it out and getting us here. Oh, and that just made me a little emotional, but it's a good way to end today's episode. What about you? What is one small step that you can take toward your healing today? I would love to know. I will, at least in Spotify, make this the question for the episode itself. So you can answer there. You can DM me on Instagram. My links are in the show notes as per usual. And thank you so much for listening, for stopping in, for being here, and for hanging out with me today. I love you so, so much, and I will chat with you again in 2 weeks. I love you. Bye-bye.